2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the Monday evening.
45 seconds.
Love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
All right, welcome in everybody on this Thursday evening. It is January 23rd as we are inching closer and closer to February. Chris Childers here with a couple of absolute stars. Jarrell McNeil and Randolph Childress are hanging out alongside tonight. There is a decent-ish night of basketball to get into. We had a couple of games involving the top 25, nothing like the last couple of nights on Tuesday and Wednesday. We were loaded up. I guess nobody's filled that void of the Pac-12. The Pac-12 was kind of that darling on Thursdays that gave us something to get into. We haven't had that void quite filled yet, but nevertheless, plenty of basketball to talk about. And gentlemen, let's start with the Memphis Tigers. Penny's team needed a late run, a 12-0 run to get by Wichita State. 61-53 was the final score in that game. The Tigers now 5-1 in the AAC. They improved to 15-4 overall. Wichita not having a good year. A lot of this game they controlled. A bunch of lead changes back and forth. Wichita State now 1-5 inside the ACC. But for Memphis, P.J. Haggerty was the star tonight. Was 8 of 11 from the field. Hit his free throws, finished with 22 points, and a big win for Penny. RC looked in doubt, but they found a way to race by a not-so-great Wichita State team tonight.
Listen, I would love to sit here and talk about how good Memphis looked, but they didn't look good. I thought this team didn't come out ready to play. And again, I think Paul Mills is a really good coach. I had Wichita State, last year. I don't think his team this year is as talented as the team he had last year, but his guys play hard for him. Memphis didn't show up to play, and it's concerning because this is the mentality this team has had no matter what's going on. I think when you watch this game, there were times Penny looked frustrated. The players looked like they were just kind of going through the motions, and they just hit the switch on the wall to try to elevate their play, and they won the game. But 20 turnovers, and of those 20, I think there was at least 10 to 12 of them were horrible turnovers. Just careless with the basketball. I would have liked them to come out and just dominate this game. And I know you're going to have certain games like that. You're not going to play your best. You're not going to shoot it well. But I didn't like the body language. I didn't like what I saw from Memphis today. And that's not just on Penny. You can see Penny's frustration with this group. You heard the guys talking about it, doing it, calling the game. Where's the leadership? Where is the, hey, guys, we're not going to let this happen. This is what everybody expects from this team once we get into conference play. This team has proven they could beat anybody on any given night when they're motivated. But to do damage in a tournament, this is concerning when you play the way they played today. There was nothing prompt. They got the win, but you can't feel good about that. I mean, I wouldn't dare say this team is treading toward what it was last year, but this performance looked like something that you saw last year, which was like the beginning of the end when that team just flipped and things just went south. So I hope I'm wrong. I'm a big Penny fan. I'm cheering for the Memphis Tigers, but this was just not, you're lucky to win this. I thought Wichita State played hard enough to at least get the win.
A better basketball team probably would have won that game, but Wichita just, quite frankly, isn't very good. And Paul Mill's still in the process of trying to build that program. Jarrell, it wasn't a great look for Memphis, and they were, quite frankly, lucky to win. But at the end of the day, they found a way. They had momentum at the end, and you take it. You try to build into the next game. And for this Memphis team, the best thing you could say, they weren't ready to play. They didn't, they weren't engaged, but when it mattered, they found a way.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, RC hit it right on the head. I would love to come on here and just be a 20-point victory and be like, man, Memphis looks good. They came in, they were prepared. Everybody had a sense of urgency, and they handled business. They did what they were supposed to do. But it was really such a hard game to watch tonight because it was just so sloppy. Especially early on, and even in the second half, Memphis had 14 first half turnovers, and at home against a team Wichita State, which we already spoke to as a struggling team already and kind of on life support, just to come in and just look disinterested again. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this from them. And I think the biggest thing and the most concerning thing right now is that we starting to see is that it's becoming a trend. They're a team right now that plays to the level of their competition. As RC spoke to, they can beat anybody. We saw that out in Maui early on when they looked like one of the best teams in the country, and we know that they got the ability and the players to look like that on any given night when they know that the stakes are high and it's a big stage and it's a major game and everybody's hyped up to play it. But at the same time, they had these nights where they look disinterested. They were constantly talking about it on the broadcast tonight, and I think they spoke to it just with the body language. You see the guys on the bench. They were in desperate need of just a spark, and they still haven't figured that out. And I think that's going to be the one kind of Achilles heel for this Memphis team is who's going to be that guy that's, when guys are looking like that, who's going to be the leader, pull guys together, or even just show and lead by that play on the court. You know what I mean? Somebody's got to provide that energy and that spark. And tonight it just felt like a night where it was brutal for the fans because I feel like the fans were kind of just dragging them along, and eventually they were able to, get that run. And, obviously, like we said, Wichita State wasn't very good. They ended up doubling or ended up leading the game in turnovers still after Memphis turned it over 14 times in the game. But it was a game that had a combined 42 turnovers in it. So sloppy game. A win is a win. Obviously, it's not nothing you gonna gripe about or complain about too much because sometimes you got to win ugly. That is what good teams do. But just a concerning trend for the Memphis Tigers though, and it's a team is frustrating because we all know that they're talented enough to match up and play with anybody in the country.
We know that. We've seen that. We saw the body of work. I mean, you've referenced it. The wins against UConn. Michigan State still hasn't lost a game in the Big Ten, and they beat them, right? They played Auburn pretty tough for most of that game. They have a couple of puzzling losses. You look at this team's body of work. They beat Ole Miss. So they have been able to match up with some of the best teams in the country. Certainly when you look at them at times, they don't look engaged. I just wonder, what was your expectation for them? But pre-Maui, when you looked at Memphis, you go back to the preseason top 25 polls. They're not in them. I mean, nobody, after last year was really thinking much about this team. It's Penny's 7th year. Jarrell, what were they to you preseason? And are they better off now than you thought? Are they pretty much what you thought? And by the way, the field of 68 has them right now in the latest bracketology projected as of Monday. Now, we'll see what happens with the new one next week, but right now they're a 6 seed.
Right. Yeah, and I think I was actually pleasantly surprised. Over the last few years, I know that they have the means to go get talent and players, but my biggest thing with Memphis over the last couple of years, you just kind of got to see how it transpires and plays out on the court. How the group of guys that Penny has put together is going to kind of mesh together, and also, it not being great, but them having so much turnover, everything going on with the coaching staff as well. It was kind of just a show and prove thing, but After I seen them in Maui against the competition out there, I was impressed. I feel like still to this day, like man for man, they're one of the best teams in the country from a talent standpoint. They got enough of the pieces. They got the right guys. They got size. They got great guard play, so they can match up with anybody. But as of right now, like RC said, you can't get that thought out of your head of what they kind of did last year when they kind of fell off of the cliff and things kind of just fell apart. And it was, not the same team. Obviously, it's built differently. And I think obviously they got, some better pieces in certain spots. But, you just don't want to see them fall off a cliff. But my biggest thing, and I was thinking about this during the game, and I just want to throw it over and see kind of like I feel like we're doing Memphis a disservice, man. They need to get out of the American, man. This is like from a basketball standpoint, I feel like it doesn't really help them to play the non-conference they play and showing. I don't know exactly where. Big 12 would be a possibility, I would think. I think geographically you could throw them in the Big East, but with them having a football program, I don't really know how that would work either. But this is a really underrated fan base in college basketball, man. They get a ton of support. They got money. They got means for NIL and that type of stuff. And when the Memphis Tigers are good, college basketball is better. But for them to be able to get back to playing meaningful and good matchups around this time of year in the conference season, I don't know. I just feel like it's something that needs to happen for that program consistently, because it's almost like a trap for them, man. Like, damn, you go back to conference after playing all of these hitters and guys are so excited to be on this stage, and then you got some of the teams that you rolled through and places that you got to go to play in their conference, man. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Listen, I agree with what you're saying. I think the thing, let me be clear, the thing that concerned me about tonight's game, it isn't, you can have bad performances, right? They're everybody's Super Bowl in that league. I get that.
Yep.
Two things concern me. One was that the turnovers were just careless. I mean, horrible turnovers. And the second thing was, it was everybody's body language. There was a moment when Penny looked like he was just super frustrated with these guys. They looked really nonchalant themselves. It just looked like a group of guys that just felt like, all right, man, we're just out here because we have to be out here. Like, they didn't even have fun. And this is a good team. There's a lot of expectations. And I know you mentioned earlier, we got them as a 6 seed. This team will make the tournament. But you want to see a level of maturity about them. But more importantly, this team looked like it wasn't even having fun. Like somebody was forcing them to be there. They were playing like a team, like their season was over with already. Like they're bad. We don't, we're not going anywhere. We're in a portal. This team has the ability. It's a whole new team. We know that's not the way Penny operates. He's able to get talent. It's a talented group. This team should be gelling and playing better as they get ready. As we get, we're nowhere near the stretch run or anything like that. But you expect this team to start playing better. They just had a reminder a couple of games ago with the loss to Temple. So they're not far removed from a loss that should have shaken them a little bit to make them come out and be ready to play. If this game was on the road, they lose. I don't think they win this game if it was on the road. I think they benefited from the crowd and just hit that switch the last 5 minutes. But those were the two things that concerned me the most. It was just the body language. Everybody, there seems to be a frustration. And the other thing is the turnovers, because that's back-to-back games where turnovers are becoming an issue. And with the level of guard play that Memphis has, I don't understand why they're turning the ball over with the poor decision making that we saw tonight.
Yeah, and I think they had 20 turnovers tonight. It's one of those things that I think baffles me a little bit, because I almost expect Memphis in this modern era to be elite. I mean, you've got FedEx, you've got Fred Smith, you've got the NIL money, you've got Penny, you've got the name, the brand, Memphis, all of it. Maybe it is the league that's holding them back. Maybe it's Penny. I mean, if it's an attitude thing,
I think it's part of the league as well too.
Yeah,
I think some of that has to do with it too. I think that they're not in the league. They're not. What is there a rivalry you're going to look forward to going there against? It's just going to be, you're going to Memphis because of that, and then after that, once you go to your preseason tournament and you get through November and December, then what? Then you're
Yeah, man.
You know,
You need a
everybody's
couple
Super
of
Bowl.
those
So
games mixed in, man. You just those
yeah,
games that you kind of circle on the calendar during the conference season, like you
kind of
said,
like
are
what
so
Illinois
just
and
a
Duke doing this year.
games.
Like
Like,
Duke has this year, then they're playing Illinois next month. No matter it looks like they're going to run through the ACC, and then they're going to have a game against Illinois. And maybe that's something Penny
yeah,
needs to do is maybe find a game against instead of playing everybody early, maybe play some in January or play one in February, maybe one each month, just to kind of keep his guys motivated.
Chris Childers
no,
with
that's a
Randolph
great point.
Childress and Jarrell McNeil. Memphis beats Wichita State 61-53. That was one game of top 25 action tonight. The other game came in the Big Ten, and the Fighting Illini of Illinois go down at home convincingly at the hands of Maryland. 91-70 was the final score. Illinois did not have the big Croatian inside. They did not have Will Riley or Trey White. I guess there was an illness going around, so they were shorthanded, and they just got handled inside. When you look at the points in the paint, it was a massive difference between what Maryland was able to get done in Illinois. Clearly, they are not deep inside, and without the Croatian, without Thomas Lofovicic, they were in harm's way tonight against Kevin Willard and Maryland, Mr. Jarrell McNeil. It was not a work of art for Illinois by any stretch.
No, not at all. And I mean, obviously, we knew it was going to be tough going into the game. I heard Underwood on the broadcast talk about it a little bit. How they had a bug running through the team. Not exactly sure what it was, but the big fellow was out. I'm not sure if that was related to that or something else. And then a couple other guys were under the weather and ended up going. But make no mistake about it, they struggled tonight. For sure, though, to shoot the ball. Offensively, they couldn't get the threes going at all. Really anything going, inside or outside. Yakachonis had another good night of filling up the stat line, but don't be fooled by that because he struggled offensively as well. Not just with turnovers and things like that, but didn't shoot a great percentage from the field. I think he finished 5 for 14 or something like that. So not just as efficient as he usually is. But and I think you got to give credit to Maryland. I think they kind of understood that going into the game. Maryland didn't make a 3-pointer into the 12-minute mark into the second half. So clearly the game plan was just to completely go inside and try to pound them inside, and they knew that they really weren't able to match up with them. And you got a combined over 50 points from Derek Queen and Julian Reese. And they ate on the glass as well too, and they really didn't it wasn't overwhelming. Like Illinois kept it somewhat close, but Illinois just wasn't able to make enough shots tonight to make this game a little bit more entertaining.
The Terps got a road win. I mean,
They did.
you got to clap it up for the
Huge.
Terps.
It's huge.
I mean, shit. They finally got one. They finally won one on the road. And this win will obviously age well. I think this is how the Terps should play. I mean, I don't know many teams in the country that have two bigs the way they have. And, I'm a big fan of Derek Queen. And I think you need to play this way because most of the time you're going to have one of them. As good as Queen is impressive, I thought he would struggle more than he has. And he's had some struggles. But I thought he struggled more in defending on the perimeter. He's switching and guarding guys, and they're trying to do a really good job of switching on the weak side to get him on, maybe not as strong of a ball handler so he can guard, but he does a really good job of trying to move his feet. Playing inside out, I mean, I don't know if this team should shoot a ton of threes. I think they should just play at a pace and just dominate you inside with those two guys and almost play like a old Kansas 2 game, a hollow action or something like that with those two big. They pass well off one another. It's difficult for their guards to free up their guards to shoot a ton of threes or shoot them at a high clip because of there's no space to drive for their guards. I think they do a really good job of getting them in the paint with some dribble handoff, but that's the way they're going to play. They had about 57, 58 points tonight from points in the paint. That's Maryland's recipe for success. I think they can win a lot of games if they do that. Trying to go, they're still going to have some issues chasing smaller guards around when people play with those stretch fours. I thought Illinois came back into the game when they went small. And then I thought, Willard did a really good job of taking Reese out, putting Queen at the 5 and playing them and vice versa at the 5. And then when they went back in at the 4, just punishing them inside. So credit to the Terps. They needed this. They needed to come in, take advantage of a compromised Illini team that was ailing from illness. And Maryland needed this win. And credit to them for getting it in a dominant way.
They took advantage of it, and they just kicked butt in the paint. They outscored Illinois 62-34. I just looked it up inside. Yeah. So they knew where to take advantage, and they pounded, and they had a lot of success. And they win the game by 21 on the road. I don't care who the heck was out for Illinois. That's a good Illinois team that still had their star freshman out there who was given everything, and it just didn't matter. I mean, Yakionis, like you said, he filled up the stat sheet, but the end of the day, in Illinois, there was a couple of moments that kind of scratched, clawed. You thought maybe they're going to make a run, and every time Maryland just kept holding him at arm's length. I think now, Jarrell, that's 4 of 5 for the Maryland Terrapins. So I guess the question is, how far can this team go? And remember, they got Indiana coming up this weekend in Bloomington, and Indiana's a whole situation in itself.
Yeah, that should be a really interesting game, and clearly a game that if the Terps really want to make their arrival and stamp it, they go into Bloomington and get a win as well too. But I think RC hit it on the head, man. I like their team. I like the fact that they're starting to buy into how they can play and win. And we talk about it all the time too. It's one of the cool things about college basketball. It's not the NBA. Guys are doing different things based on their personnel. Coaches have different schemes. Guys are going to play different ways. And I love that point that RC made just about that 2-man game, almost like that high-low action. And they went to it a lot tonight, and they kind of been doing it all year. And they had great success with it. Derek Queen is really good, man. The more I see him, the more I really like him. And I think he's almost a little bit underrated with just some of the things that he can do. Just reading the game and passing the ball. Like, he had a couple of touch passes tonight, man, right from that high post area, hitting Julian Reese for some easy buckets, and the fact that he's able of getting more and more confident to start taking that in between 15-foot jump shot just to keep the defense honest, it's gonna be trouble. And you still got Gillespie as well on the perimeter to put pressure on the rim, try to get downhill and give you some buckets too. But they're a tough, rugged team, man. They beat you up inside. They trying to get points in the paint. They not trying to settle for a whole lot of jumpers. They scrappy, they tough, they play pretty good defense. So I like where they at right now. You got to give a lot of credit to Coach Willard. So they're doing a good job, man. They got to stack some more road wins, as RC spoke to, but they're in good shape right now.
Well, they needed one, and you need one to start building.
Yeah,
a couple.
So you got to start stacking them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Can't get a couple till you get the first one.
100%.
That's true.
100%. They got the first one. So here's my question as we talk about the game tonight, and Maryland whips up on Illinois. Illinois has lost 3 of 4. And on the surface, people can look at that and say, what's going on? That team, certainly isn't living up to its potential. But tonight they had the flu. They didn't have their big man. Certainly it explains what happened inside. The last game out, you had the freshman that was in foul trouble for, I think he played 8 minutes. Yakionis did. The loss before that, he didn't play, right? He was injured. So, they really haven't been whole. They haven't been healthy. We haven't seen them at full strength. And I just wonder, is this kind of a mirage what we're seeing with Illinois when they're whole and healthy? And that's an if, RC. Do you still look at that team as one of the bigger threats to do something significant from the Big Ten?
I don't know. I think they've spotted Michigan State too many games. I think they got a 4-game lead right now. I think that's a large lead to overcome if Michigan State, with the way they're playing it and the depth that they have, and right now, unless they succumb to some injuries. I still think Illinois is the most talented team in the Big Ten, so I won't back off that. They got to get healthy and they got to win games. But when you get in the conference play, this is what happens. We've seen what they can be like, but you get injuries or you get the bug running through your team, things like that. All these things are going to happen, and you got to find a way to overcome these things. And tonight, they weren't able to do so. They were dominated by a team that Maryland, I thought, had to have this game, and they played like it. So I don't want to overreact. I wasn't crazy about the USC loss. I thought Michigan, whistle here, whistle there against Michigan State. I think that changes things in their favor. The USC loss, was a kind of a head scratcher. But I think when this team is whole and healthy, I'm not worried about them. I think the Big Ten race is over for them. I don't think they come back. They've spotted Michigan State too far of a lead. That's a 4-game lead with 11 to play or so. I just don't think that's enough time unless Michigan State just absolutely collapses. And I just don't see it. I think they're playing too well. I think they're out of winning the Big Ten regular season championship.
Yeah, Michigan State looks pretty damn good on both sides of the floor right now, pretty balanced under Tom Izzo. Let's take a break, come back. We'll get outside of the games tonight, get to the big picture, look at some of the major conferences and the conference title races as we are pretty close now, about a week away from February. So we'll do that next right here on the Field of 68 After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today.
All right, we are back here. It is the Field of 68 After Dark on this Thursday. Chris Childers with Jarrell McNeil and Randolph Childress having some fun tonight. We talked a lot early on about the Memphis win. They didn't look great, little lethargic, but rallied to beat Wichita, and then Illinois getting hammered at home by Maryland, just devoured in the paint without their big guy from Croatia. But let's talk about the big picture now. Let's zoom out a little bit. We are getting close to February, which means we're a month and change away from that magical, mystical month we call March in this world of college basketball, which we adore so much. So with that said, conference races are heating up. Let's get into what we think about who's going to win, some of the teams to watch in these major leagues. We'll take a look at the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12. And let's start in the SEC right now. I mean, it's clearly the best league in the country. If you look at any bracketology, including our own, there's a lot of teams scattered throughout it. I mean, almost the entire league, if you look at it, is included in some way, shape, or form. Texas right now, when you look at the standings, or excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I was looking at football. Texas was the wrong team. But when you look at the standings inside the SEC, certainly it's a logjam with Auburn. Alabama is near the top. Tennessee's had a couple of hiccups here lately. They were dominating early, but they're still a game and a half back. Missouri's right there. Florida A&M, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Mississippi State. It is crazy. So there's plenty to choose from, Randolph Childress. If you had to pick your winner right now, plus a team to watch in the SEC, who would that be, sir?
I don't know how you look past Auburn and Alabama and take your pick, either one to win it. I've been so impressed with Auburn, losing Janai Broome and still playing the way that they're playing, losing the most. I thought he was the player of the year and most dominant player at that time when he went out, and they were playing obviously very well. Alabama goes out. They played everybody, anybody, anywhere. They've battle tested it, and they still right back top 5 team in the country. I don't know how you look past either one of those two to win the league. I think they're the two teams that I think that'll decide it. There's still some other teams to look out for, but I'm a big Florida fan as well, Missouri as well. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you look past either one of those teams. I'd be shocked. Odds on favorite has to be Auburn or Alabama to win the SEC.
Is there a team that you look at? Oh, I guess we can get to that side of it in a minute. As somebody outside of Alabama that might sneak in at the end and get across the finish line and win the SEC. But Jarrell, are you of the mind right now that it's one of those teams? It's got to be Alabama or Auburn that ends up winning the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those two teams are the two biggest threats, and there's no getting around that. When you talk about just favorites as of right now, obviously RC just spoke to that. Just what Auburn's been able to do without their best player has been super impressive. And you know, obviously Alabama, everybody kind of expected them to be what they are, and you know, they've held serve so far. They look great, getting all the way healthy as well too. But just when they're hitting on all cylinders, they're one of the hardest teams in the country to stop. They're impactful. They play fast. They can light it up. They got athletes and they got a ton of guys that can go get it. So I think you got to go Auburn, Alabama for the SEC favorite right now.
Yeah, I wish I could be out there. I wish I could do something sexy and you know, say, well, Tennessee, and you know, I love Tennessee and I love Tennessee at home. Tennessee's defense certainly has been fantastic, but we saw that Florida game. I can't unsee it. You know, we've seen games where the offense, Chaz Lanier, just don't have the oomph. So you look at some of these moments, right? You look at some of these games. Auburn's been, you said it, Randolph, the fact that they've been as good as they are and they've been able to survive without Janai Broom and still be undefeated in the SEC, I think shows you a lot about the character inside that locker room for Bruce Pearl. But for me, I'm going to go Alabama. I'll just flat out say Alabama is going to win it all. They're going to win the league. That I know the defense continues to be a concern, and even the other night, they gave up 87 in a win against Vanderbilt, but it's like watching a sports car. It's like watching Max Verstappen go around the track of an F1 race. I mean, it is an offensive explosion every time they go out there. Mark Sears and company have been outstanding. You saw Diabite the other day. It's just a team, to me, what Nate Oates has developed there in Alabama is nothing short of magical. And really the state of Alabama in general. I mean, this is, I cover football for a living, and I've done it for the last 20-something years. And trust me, it matters in the state of Alabama. But what they've developed from a cultural perspective with the bouncing orange ball is nothing short of remarkable. And I give Bruce Pearl the lion's share of the credit for making that happen. To me, when Auburn got Bruce, and Bruce said, okay, we're going to make this basketball thing sexy, that's when Alabama said, okay, we got to match that. If you're going to do it, we're going to do it. We're going to get Avery Johnson. Well, it didn't work, but the Nate Oates thing certainly is. And he's got the resources right now to have success. So I think I would go Alabama. As far as like a dark horse, an underdog, Jarrell, is there a one of those teams that you – I mean, the league is so damn deep. Is there somebody you think can make a run?
I really like Florida. And to be honest with you, the last 2 years, I really like Florida. I just like their roster makeup, man. They got a ton of guys, especially perimeter players, guards that can go get it. Clayton is one of the best guards in the country. They also added Elijah Martin as well too, with Will Richard also, and then they got pieces inside as well too with Condon. So I love their pace. They get up and down. They can really fill it up. They can score a lot of the points. I think at the end of the day, the question mark is always going to be on the defensive end right now with Florida. It's just once they get into those slugfests with some of these teams like Tennessee or Auburn, when you run into those guys and you're getting heated up and you get into a low-scoring game, are they going to be able to gut out and get enough stops in the trenches to gut out some of those victories in the SEC? But they're definitely a team that's going to be right around that top 4 area anyway, but I think it's going to end up being a really close race. So I think if they're able to kind of keep their head above water and get some good wins and maybe sneak a couple out on the road that they're not supposed to get, that they'll be in the mix as well too, possibly.
I think everybody, the reason I said Alabama and Auburn is because I think everybody else has had a slip up. And I think those two have avoided the slip up. Florida, I agree with you on Florida. I'm big on Florida. I love the makeup of their team. I think they have depth. I love their guard play. You got 3,000-point scorers in the backcourt. I love their front court. They just keep running guys at you. They're interchangeable. I like what I see from them. Obviously, they fell big to Missouri early and scrapped back, and Missouri was able to take that game in Gainesville at the end. And credit to the Tigers, Missouri, for getting that done. But A&M is a team that intrigues me. They just keep finding ways to win, man. I don't know how. I mean, as much crap as Buzz Williams has gotten over the years, that team is battle tested, and they play this physical style. I always say that Rob always laughs at me when I say this. They're not going to let you play this pretty ball movement, flowing style of basketball. They dragging you out in the deep end. You're gonna have to get grimy and win it ugly, and that's what they do, and they just step up. With a basket keep stepping up, hitting the three, hitting the game winner the other night. They just find ways to win. They put you in these one possession games where they're comfortable, and they're a team that just wouldn't surprise them as well. This league is just brutal, man. I mean, we're talking what 8, 9 teams in the top 25. I mean, it's been that way. I think it'll be that way all year long. But I love the different styles of the teams and how they play. And you can go down a list and pick out every team. Ole Miss is the same, but we talked about the other day. I'm a big Malik Dia fan and the way he plays and how he changes the game and what his skill set is. And I think he's one of the best players, that no one's talking about in the league that's loaded the way this league is. So I'm going to say Florida or A&M will be a team that I could say just kind of and more A&M, because I think Florida's been there. They've been their top 5 team. They've ranked really high, so I don't think that's a kind of a surprise to say them. But if I had to pick one that I say would be more of a surprise, I'd say I'd pick A&M.
Do you guys think at any point the off the court stuff gets weird for Florida? Because I'm with you on the court. They're fantastic.
No, I don't. I don't. When you hear stuff like that, you watch how the teams play, and that tells you a lot about it. And when you watch this team play, it looks like there's nothing in the world. They're just going out there hooping and they playing ball. So a lot of times with stuff like that, people on the outside will hear about it and talk more about it. When you're in the locker room or you're on the court, you're hooping, and those guys looking like they're just worried about playing ball right now. They don't look like it doesn't feel like they're overwhelmed of hearing the outside noise or keep hearing the same questions. It doesn't look like somebody's beating them over the head, asking them every day about what's going on. They just seem like it's out there. It is what it is. And then they're just playing. So I still expect Florida to be there when it all said and done and have a chance to win the SEC.
No, it kind of looks like they've taken on that us versus the world mentality with everything going on. Let's go Big Ten. We talked SEC, and I think a lot of us are certainly enamored with the state of Alabama. The SEC is the league that's getting all the accolades, and everybody's talking about the depth and the amount of bids and the seeding. You look at the Big Ten right now. I asked this question the other day on the Field of 68. I said, of the teams in this league, and this was fresh off Purdue's loss to Ohio State, is there anyone you trust at all to get to San Antonio? And there was nobody that really stood out, right? There's not a team that stands out. Maybe it's Michigan State, maybe whoever, but it's not like, man, it's, San Antonio or bust for a team in the Big Ten. Michigan State is the team that's been perfect. They haven't had any hiccups. Michigan right behind them at 6-1. Michigan State, both sides of the ball are delivering until proven otherwise with Jaden Atkins and what they've done. The backcourt, Jeremy Fears. I've got to say it's Michigan State, and I freaking love it. I really do. I mean, Tom Izzo is a guy who's been in this game forever. We've seen all our heroes go. We've seen them all go. Krzyzewski hung it up. Roy hung it up. Tony Bennett said, I can't do this crap anymore. Jay Wright, all the guys that we love said this game changed too much. It's insanity. I'm not doing it. Meanwhile, who the hell's number one in the Big Ten? It's Izzo. It's Mr. March. It's the greatest damn thing to see. I'm riding with it. I hope it stays. Jarrell McNeil, who you got winning the Big Ten on January 23rd?
Well, I think the clear front runner has to be Michigan State as well. But let me be clear about this. I also just have to state the true feeling behind it is that Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten. Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten.
So is that your dark horse? Is that the?
And I wouldn't even say that
team
because I had Michigan as my team to watch. I don't know if that's a good team to watch because I think they're like, they'll be in the mix. They'll be able to catch Michigan State and put some pressure on them for a Big Ten championship. But I'm not so sure, RC, that Michigan State isn't going catch a couple bumps in the road before this thing is said and done. If I had to guess, I would think whoever wins the conference still ends up with about maybe 4 losses. So would it completely put Illinois out of the mix? No, but it puts them in a tough spot. But either way, I don't know if they'll win. I don't think they'll win it now with them digging themselves a hole like that. But they are, in my opinion, still the best and most complete team, I feel like, in the Big Ten.
But you got Michigan State winning it, right?
I think
I
it's
still
Michigan
got Michigan
State.
State taking it.
I think it's Michigan State too, and for a ton of different reasons. One, I love their improvement and what they look like. I mean, we were down at the I said this to Rob as well. We were down at the Champions Classic, and we were all watching the game going like, oh my God, we about to fall asleep. I thought this was going to be another year of brutal shooting, and it's like they playing football, basketball, just a physical group, can't throw it in the ocean. And this team has been fun to watch. They're playing with pace. They're sharing the ball. They're coming at you different waves. You're right. Michigan State, conference play is conference play no matter what league you're going to play. You're going to take some bumps. They're not Duke. They're not what I think Duke is doing to what will be in the ACC. I don't think Duke will lose any more than 2 games at the max. And that'll be like a Vegas bet should be if they lose 2 games. I think Michigan State can drop a couple of games, but I think they go to Rutgers next. That's a difficult place to play. I think they get that win. They play Minnesota after that, and then they play USC. I think those 3 are winnable games. And again, at that point, when you spotted them a couple of games for teams like Illinois who are 4 games out, they win the next 3. Now we're down to single digits in conference play games. Now we're into February. I don't think any of those teams at that point could catch them. I think the only team that's close that has a chance is like Michigan, maybe Purdue just dropped one. I think they bought themselves some leeway. If they don't let their foot off the gas, and that's what I think make Tom Izzo so great. He's not going to have that. He's not going to settle for that. These guys, with the way that they play, the way that he coaches, I've been on record. He's my favorite coach. I'm glad that this is happening for him so late in his career, because with the lack of success recently, people were starting to, to have some conversations about is it time, and obviously what he's doing, he's proving those guys wrong. So credit to him, to his team. They're winning his way. I think they win the next couple of games. They'll have an upset. They just, those things happen, but they're taking care of business. And I think I expect them, that lead to extend. If they can win the next 3, what would that lead look like?
It's a cool race in the Big Ten right now, and I still agree with Jarrell that Illinois is the best team, and I think they're the one that goes the furthest in the NCAA tournament, as long as they're healthy. I mean, as long as the flu doesn't happen and the young Lithuanian doesn't get into foul trouble and he's healthy, they're damn good. They're absolutely the most talented.
I'll say this and we move
ahead.
on. I'll say this before we move on. I agree with you guys, and I've been on record saying Illinois is the most talented team. But also, when we start talking about there's a lot of inexperience on this team when it comes to tournament time too. So they're relying on a lot of young guys in the big dance that hadn't been there as well. So that's when when Boswell and all those other guys got to step up and be a bigger factor than they are right now. But Illinois is relying on a lot of young guys to make a deep run, and that's not a recipe for a long run for success in the tournament, in my opinion.
I agree completely, and I think they're a question mark if they're not hitting the 3 ball, if they're not shooting the ball well from the perimeter, or they're kind of like a target score team, like what I mean, like they need to hit about 80 points to ensure that they got a chance to win the game. On a night-to-night basis, it's not always that don't always lead to success, especially in March. Just because different types of games, different styles. You just run into a lot of different changes and styles of play and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that I'm sure they're gonna make a deep run either, but I do think they're the best team in the Big Ten.
Let's go now to the Big 12 on the field of 68 after dark. Chris Childers with Jarrell McNeil and Randolph Childress. The Big 12, different looking league this year. Oklahoma and Texas out of it. You had a lot of the Pac-12 join the league, but Houston on top. Some of the the old hat, Houston, Iowa State, 1-2 right now in that league. Arizona also tied for second place at 6-1 with Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech right behind them. Houston 7-0. I think they held Utah to like 36 points last night. Are they the team that's going to win the league, Randolph Childress, or is it someone else?
I hate to go against Houston because I think they'll be right there. I think it's only though it goes back to, like I said before, in the SEC with Auburn, Alabama, is Iowa State and it's Houston. I think it's one of those two teams. Right now, I'm stuck. To be honest, I think it's those two. If I had to pick one, I'd say Iowa State right now. But I'm not. Don't put a gun to my head because I'm flipping. Yeah. I'm coin flipping. I may wake up tomorrow and I'm gonna say Houston. Yeah. It's literally like that. It's like the difference in who wins this league to me is like if someone gets the flu, right? Like if the flu happens or something through the roster and it costs them a game or something crazy like that. They're two teams because they're so similar. They're two really good defensive teams that are really good on the offensive end. And when you combine those two teams, I think they'll separate from the rest of the league.
Fabulous coaches. When you look at Otzelberger, when you look at Kelvin Sampson, are you going with one of them as your team as well, Jarrell, to win the Big 12?
Yeah, I officially planted my flag on the Iowa State bandwagon a couple weeks ago. So I gotta stay true to my pick, man. They've been impressive. Obviously, like we said, it's hard to ever just try to discount Houston. I think like that they won't be in the mix. So we know it's gonna come down probably to the last couple of games, and Houston is gonna be in the running as well too. But man, Iowa State has showed me a lot. I feel like they can win a multitude of ways, and they got a ton of firepower. And I think that when it comes down to them in Houston, that's the part I think puts them over the edge or gives them the edge a little bit. It's just that I feel like they got a little bit more firepower offensively than Houston. Houston obviously hangs their hat on the defensive end, and so does Iowa State. But those guards, and then Joshua Jefferson and Big Jackson in the middle, man, and then Momcilovic when he comes back or when he gets healthy or whatever, like it's crazy, man. They got a lot of different ways it can go, man.
Both teams are on the road this weekend. We're gonna learn a lot about them, and I think Houston has the tougher road, right, with at Kansas and at West Virginia. So, two ranked opponents. Do they give one back to the pack and come back a game or two? We'll find out. But I don't think anybody debates those are the two best teams, and they're two of the better teams in the country. I mean, Houston is a lot better. They're probably the best team that no one's talking about from a national perspective. I think that's because of the way they started and how they lost to the quality opponents early in the year.
I feel like that's kind of been an MO with Houston. I'm picking Houston to be that team. Defense, Kelvin Sampson, need I say more? I mean, I trust him. They've done it. They've been that team. But I love Otzelberger. But I just think Houston's going to be that team when it's all said and done who gets that one seed in the Big 12 tournament. Let's take a break. We will come back. We'll get Bubblicious right around the corner on the Field of 68 after dark.
Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
All right, back here, Field of 68 after dark on this Thursday, our final week of January. I guess next week we start a little bit in January. We'll finish up in February, and that means March is right around the corner. Things are getting tight. We got a month and change left to go. Let's talk about the bubble right now. The Field of 68 has a great bracket. I know the bracket show comes out tomorrow, the bracketology, so you're not going to want to miss that. But when you look at things, and I was taking a peek at this bracket a little bit earlier. I mean, the one seeds are obvious for the most part. Auburn's right there, Alabama, Duke. They got Tennessee as the one in the West, the twos, Purdue, Iowa State, Florida, Kansas. So we know the good teams. But what about the bubble? I want to go through 5 teams right now. Our producers gave us 5 squads to look at: Arkansas, North Carolina, Nebraska, Cincinnati, and Indiana. And they asked us to rank them as far as who we trust the most to the least of who can make a run to get to the NCAA tournament. Randolph Childress, we will start with you. Let's take a look at your list. Let's see if it pops up there on the screen. Randolph, explain why you have Indiana 1 through the list and Arkansas number 5.
Look, I would love to sit here and tell you guys I feel great about saying that, but this team has been heckle and jive all year long. I mean, we've seen when they've been bad, they've been really bad. But say what you want. I mean, I know everybody's going to talk about the loss that it just had. This team is still 14-6 with, with 2 wins in quad 1 game. So I just think that of the teams on this list, I just like where they are. I think they have a better chance of getting a couple of more quality wins. They still, when we're ready to count them out, they still come back and they compete. They find it and they're competing. And as much as we've talked about them, where they look like they've quit. You're talking about the fans, they're booing, they're calling for Mike Woods' job. Like, this team has gone through a lot, and then they still tend to come out there and compete. If they show enough mental toughness, I think they can be, of this list of teams, I feel most comfortable for what the body of work that they put in. Because I said this earlier, at one point in time, I think they were like 13-3 earlier, or something like that to start the year. And everybody was just like ready to run them off or whatever it was. And they had a really good start. But their losses have just been horrendous. And obviously there's been some distractions. And I've been critical of them when I hear the stories about guys hanging out. But I still think that they're showing up, they're competing, and more importantly, I think they have probably the most talent of those 5 schools. Collectively, they have the most talent. So I give them the best chance of being a team that can make the tournament.
What about you? You had Nebraska, or not Nebraska. You had Arkansas last on your list, and right now they're 12-7. They're 2-7 in quad 1 games. I mean, again, none of these teams. When I was putting together my list, I was like, flip a coin. But Arkansas spent a ton of money on this roster. Why do you have them at the bottom?
I think they lost their best player. And he was the one guy I watched when Boogie Flan went out. He was the guy that I thought they went as far as Boogie Flan was going to take him. And I know they just beat Georgia the other night. Congratulations to those guys. They're in a brutal conference. They're going to have way more quad 1 opportunities, but I just don't think they're going to win enough games to get them in the tournament. I really don't. Congratulations on that win. But from watching them all year long and knowing what Boogie Flan meant to that team, I don't know how they overcome his loss, and I don't have any confidence that Arkansas will figure it out. They'll get in. I don't think they're all this talent that everybody's talking about. I don't think their pieces fit. They haven't fit as well together. The only good thing, or the only thing I think they can hold their hand to now, is hoping that John L. Davis just figures it out. He just started getting hot and playing well, and he didn't shoot it well the other night. But maybe now that he's going to get constant minutes, that we'll start seeing him figure it out, that uptick in the level of play that he's playing in the SEC. Maybe, it looks like he's overwhelmed with it right now. Maybe it slows down for him. Maybe he starts to figure some things out because he's going to have to play 30, 35 minutes. But overall with that team, I just don't see it.
I think you're making a lot of sense. And again, you look at these 5 teams. I mean, like we were talking off the air, Randolph's like, let me be clear. I don't like any of them. Yeah, and I don't either.
But of the group, I think I feel as though Indiana has the best chance. Yeah. I don't know. I know Nebraska has a chance. I think in the Big Ten, I think Indiana's resume, I think Indiana has a better chance than Nebraska. Being in the Big Ten. So that's just my thoughts on them. Cincinnati, I don't know who Cincinnati has beaten. Cincinnati was as high as 16th in the country, and then when Arizona smacked them up, they just seem not recover. And again, they're going to need to do something in the conference play to figure it out for a team that's 2-5 right now. And I don't, having not played or haven't beaten anybody significantly in the preseason, I don't see Cincinnati making a push to get in.
All right, so we're looking at the bubble right now, and 5 teams we are ranking 1 through 5 on who we trust the most to the least to make a run to the tournament. Now, Randolph had Indiana on his list number 1, but Jarrell, your list looks a little bit different. You've got Indiana last and Cincinnati, Jarrell, number 1.
Explain yourself.
We kind of did. It was almost a bit of a flip flop, RC. Almost. But yeah. So I mean, first of all, like you said, you got to state the obvious. Is they haven't been putting us in a good position for these. I think it was last week I had to do a buy wholesale with Auburn. I think it's actually Nebraska. But I went Cincinnati first, and I know they got 0 for 5 in the quad 1 games, but I think it kind of helps them out the fact that that they don't have a ton of bad, what you would call, I'll say bad losses. Don't get me wrong, they've got the doors blown off them a couple times, but not necessarily from trash teams or teams that are underperforming consistently. So I think they kind of set up, if they can somehow put it all together and go on a run and win some games in the Big 12. I think they got BYU coming up at BYU on Saturday, so they'll need to kind of get the ball rolling there and start it there. But more than anything, out of all these other teams, I've watched Cincinnati a lot. I do have a little bit more confidence in them than anybody else, just the way that their roster is kind of constructed. I think they got good pieces. They got solid players. They just haven't been able to put it all together yet. North Carolina was second, and let me be clear in saying this. I've still been scratching my head over just the last couple of weeks how everybody is saying like North Carolina will be in, but I think if the tournament starts today, they would definitely be out. They beat absolutely no one. Their best wins will probably be like Dayton and UCLA at this point. 2 teams that are kind of underperforming as well too. So, and then they're just piling up the bad losses. And the biggest thing I'll say this is that the brand helps them. The brand helps them. We're talking about this and constantly saying that they're going to be. We're putting North Carolina on the bubble because of what North Carolina is and what it means to college basketball, which I think is kind of a bit unfair. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's working in their favor, they still got to play Duke twice. So we all know how that goes in rivalry games. They're able to snatch one of those or possibly, which I think is almost impossible, get both. They'll be right back in the tournament. That's how this thing is going to work for them. Nebraska has a chance, but they'll have to turn it around quickly. I do like the way that their team is constructed. They need a little bit of help inside. They're going to struggle in the Big Ten with rebounding and stuff, but Bryce Williams is one of the top scorers in the league. Jawan Gary can play. Sejan can shoot it. I think RC hit it on the head with Arkansas. Boogie Flynn is out. At this point, I feel like Arkansas's only hope is, like he said, is just – what do you got to lose? I'm giving the ball to Jonell Davis because he's a dude I've seen do it before the last couple of years. Put the ball in his hands and let him go and ride and win or lose, die with him. Trying to be the facilitator, playmaker, your lead guard, and I think that's the only way that they'll have any shot at kind of stacking enough wins up. But it's going to be tough on them because they're in the best conference in the SEC. And then I just don't got a ton of confidence in Indiana now. Why? I see why RC put Indiana 1 on his list, but I couldn't do it, and I actually went the opposite way and put them last on my list just because, and it's not necessarily because of the resume or the wins or the losses. I've been watching it, man, and this is a team that has zero identity. They don't know where to hang their hat on. They don't know where they're going. They don't even know if they're coming. So I don't see this playing out well for them in the coming weeks in games in the Big Ten. It's going to be a super competitive conference because right now they're in the range where, teams that are above and below them are probably going to get in the Big Ten right now. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to stack some wins and get some quality wins at some point. And the way that they've been missing out on opportunities lately, I just don't have a lot of confidence in that roster makeup. Obviously, they got good players. It's not the talent. I'm not saying that they don't have good players or the talent. It's just like they're a team that doesn't have an identity. They don't know who they are.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Of the 5 teams we're talking about, and you're coaching, what roster you taking?
Oh, it's a no-brainer.
You're coach.
It's a no-brainer. It's Indiana. It's Indiana.
Okay.
Roster.
Okay.
For sure.
Right.
For sure. That's what I said. It ain't the talent. No, I ain't saying that. See, they got the hoopers. It's something else, man. It's something else.
No, I won't argue. I can't push back on that. Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I just think of those 5 teams, the reason I picked them first, one, I think they got the talent. Yeah. And they've had their moments. And do I believe in them totally of what all the distractions? Not necessarily, but they're the most talented roster of those 5 teams.
They got that.
Let's flash mine up really quick. Yeah, no question about that. I got Nebraska #1. Love Bryce Williams. I do worry about them inside. They got to turn it around quick. They have a lot of quad 1 opportunities coming up over the next couple of weeks. I don't trust them by any means, but Indiana, I just think that at #5, the Mike Woodson thing is weird. It's weird, the whole vibe, and anytime there's a weird vibe, I don't give a damn how much talent you have.
How can you get more of a weird vibe than Arkansas? Like, what's weird in Arkansas? And they lose their best player.
They're right there with them. They're tied for. But at least it's the first year of the weird, is why I'm giving him a mild reprieve. It's like the beginning of the weird.
Ongoing weird.
Indiana's just been, massive shit for a while. All right, let's finish up with a toast of the evening, my friends. I will go first. I know Goodman hates it when I do this, but anytime Middle Tennessee is playing a game on a night that I am hosting and they win, a toast to the Blue Raiders. They win 77-75 tonight. They are 14-5. They are on top of Conference USA, and Justin Porter went 10-16 from the field, 28 points. So a toast to Middle Tennessee, top of Conference USA. Who's next? RC?
I gotta go Kevin Willard and the Terps, man. You finally get a road win. Like, I don't know what the hell took so long or why'd you wait so long, but you went on the road in the Big Ten. I don't care if they were sick, strep throat, whatever the hell they had. They showed up. You won the game. Congratulations to the Maryland Terps.
Here. I got to give my SiriusXM producer, Allie Gearing, is the biggest Maryland alumni fan in the world. So tip of the cap to her, to toast. Jarrell, take us home, sir. Who you toasting?
I'll stay on par with the Terps, and I'll give it. I'm going with Julian Reese, man. Finished the game with 27 and 17 rebounds. Him and Queen were absolutely monsters inside all night, and they grinded Illinois down tonight, man. They got that road win. They kind of got off the snide in that regard, so it's an easy one for my toast of the night. Hey, Chris, is that a mason jar you drinking out of?
Is that moonshine, man? What the hell are you drinking? Is that moonshine?
No, that's like it's Propel. It's like kiwi strawberry Propel. That's mixed in there.
Drinking moonshine out of mayonnaise jar.
I don't. My wife buys these. I don't know what it is, but it's not shine. I promise you. It's electrolytes. All right, we are done for the night. Randolph Childress, thank you. Jarrell McNeil, thank you. We'll see you all tomorrow night on After Dark. Peace, everybody.